You're listening to the Grit to Growth podcast. Real talk with real business owners and professionals who built their freedom the hard way and now want more time, money, and impact.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Levi Tisla with Mailbox Money here in Sioux Falls. And today joining me is Dr. Abigail Polzin, an emergency medicine physician, medical director at Sanford AirMed, and now program director of the emergency medicine residency at the USD Sanford School of Medicine. Dr. Abigail Polzin, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, so let's get into it with a little bit of your personal background and let people know who you are.
All right. Well, I'm a transplant to South Dakota. My husband and I moved here 12 years ago. And all of this is kind of mingled in with how medical education goes about. So you have to get a degree in undergrad first. And I did that in Utah, actually. And then I went to medical school in Milwaukee at the Medical College of Wisconsin. And I stayed there to do what's called a residency, which is the specialty training in whatever specialty you've chosen. Those can range from 3 years to up to 5-year programs. I chose emergency medicine. I always loved not knowing what was coming in the door. I loved EMS and ambulances and AirMed and all that kind of stuff. And so that was a natural fit for me. And so I was finishing up my training in Milwaukee, and there really weren't many jobs in the area in Wisconsin. My husband's from the Mankato, Minnesota area. I grew up all over the place. And so he had gone to South Dakota State. So we thought, well, why not try South Dakota? We'll do it. No state income tax sounds pretty good, right? For 4 years.
Yes, it does.
Just to pay off the student loans, and we'll move out here. And so we did that. And I took my first job at Sanford, and that I never left. That's going to probably be my only job. So.
That's awesome. It's kind of a rare thing, only one job, but a very awesome thing that happens. So what year then would you have came to South Dakota?
We moved here in 2013. And at the time we had one daughter and a son on the way. And we now have 2 sons. So 3 children. And, you know, we've got a church community. We've got a school community. The kids literally walk to school. It is uphill both ways in the snow. For them.
There is definitely a lot of snow in it now.
Yeah, but we really love the community that we've got here, and so we're all feeling pretty fulfilled, and no need to look around. And in fact, my sister moved here in 2019, and then my parents moved here last summer. So we've kind of brought everybody here to South Dakota.
Did you convince them then?
I mean, maybe not convinced, just they kind of could see. We had moved around a lot as kids. My dad is a Lutheran pastor. And so we kind of moved around a lot. There wasn't a specific place that was home. And so, yeah, when we found this, and they would come and visit, and they all loved it here. They all loved different things in the community, and, you know, going to the zoo with my kids, or Washington Pavilion, or all the exciting things there are to do here. And so they kind of were like, well, there's no place else we'd rather be. And it's also really easy to travel in and out of Sioux Falls.
Absolutely.
So there's kind of not really a bad reason to not live here. So.
That's a good sell job right there. I could see how you got them. Going back to what you were talking about, your residency and choosing which one, you said you kind of liked the not knowing what's going on and everything. Was it always the plan for emergency, or was there ever another kind of course of action?
Yeah, so I'm going to date myself here, but I grew up wanting to be Dr. Quinn medicine woman, like kind of the jack of all trades, like out on the prairie, like taking care of everybody. And I would say nowadays that's probably like rural family medicine is the closest you can get. So I actually did consider family medicine, but I kind of knew even if I had done family medicine, I would have probably have wanted to do emergency medicine. And ultimately I decided I'd like to train in emergency medicine. And then I had always considered that actually rural medicine might be something I would be interested in. And I think we'll talk a lot about that going on forward, but I don't think that I'm going to right now end up working full-time rural, but I'm really dedicated to rural health and emergency medicine in rural places. So
very cool. For those listening that think that emergency might be the way to go, what's kind of some of the mindset like that you have to, obviously it's a very high demand job, right? As in it takes a lot of you personally.
Yeah, I think you have to get over my kids don't realize that Christmas has to be on the same day every year. We've done Christmas all whatever kind of days, whatever mom's work schedule is. So there's always that idea of it's 24/7, 365. I don't have a 9 to 5 job. There are definitely days I don't want a 9 to 5 job. I love going shopping on Tuesday mornings when there's nobody else at the stores. That's one of my favorite things about the job. So yeah, kind of being ready for that. But I think emergency medicine is just really flexible too. You can find jobs in South Dakota. There are jobs where I could work like a 24-hour shift and I would work 8 of those in a month and be done. You know what I mean? And so there's a lot of value with that. Here in town in Sioux Falls, most people work more like 8 or 9 hour shifts just because the volume is a lot higher. And then the other thing is just, you have to be okay with not being in control. I cannot control how many ambulances come in. I cannot control how many people are in my waiting room. I can't really control what the wait is in my waiting room. And there's just those things that you have to be able to not, worry about. I also find that I think I'm pretty good at making quick connections with people. And that's one of the skills you have to have in EM. I have to take 30 seconds to convince you and your family that I can take care of you. And you don't know me from anybody else, and we're often having very private or personal conversations, in the first 30 seconds. So.
Well, I suppose telling your family to come move where you are is a lot easier than, that 30 seconds of telling someone something crazy is happening.
Yeah. We were actually just talking about this. I grew up watching my dad do public speaking all the time. And it's funny how many of those things I can use in my day-to-day job. I relate to. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely not when you hear of any, thinking of emergency room doctor or physician, you're not thinking of the public speaking side of thing at all. That's awesome that you learned those skills from him.
Yeah.
How about on the AirMed side of things? Walk us through, obviously people see the helicopter flying back and forth, but that's another level of an intensity. What's it like from the moment a call comes in to wheels up? Talk us through that.
Yeah, so I had only been here for about 2 years when the opportunity came to become the medical director for AirMed. And I will spoil this with saying I just handed over the reins a few months ago. So I
Okay.
completed a decade of AirMed medical director. But so they are obviously an incredibly skilled flight program. I have to give a shout out to our partners here in town of Air Care Flight. We have very similar training, very similar expertise. And so just being in this area, there's such a high level of quality critical care transport that we have, which we do not have in the rest of the state, which is why both of our services are so busy. So yeah, they'll get a transfer request. Often 80% of what we do is interfacility transfers, meaning that the patient is already at a small rural hospital and they need to come to Sioux Falls for a higher level of care or a specialist. And so usually the patient is being stabilized. The helicopters will do some scene flights, and those come with their own, risks and safety issues. Sometimes they're landing in somebody's driveway. Sometimes they're landing in the church parking lot, depending on the community that they're going to. Sometimes it's the middle of the night, and you really have to train on those skills. So as the medical director, I was responsible for writing the protocols, approving all the medications that we carry, and then doing the training for our skilled paramedics and nurses that fly with us. And yeah, I did that for 10 years. I loved every minute of it. It's a close-knit team. I was just talking to some of them yesterday. I do really miss it. That was a really hard thing to hand off. But as we'll get into the program, the residency program is really just taking up all of my time right now. So
Yeah, right. Let's get into that part of it. But right before was doing the helicopter, was that something that you thought oh man, height and all that, or was that very natural to you?
no, I had first of all, usually to get that kind of a role, especially at such a busy place in a big place, it could have only gone to me in a place like Sioux Falls. If I would have been at a bigger institution like in Minneapolis, or if I would have stayed in Milwaukee, I would have had to do additional training and probably waited in line for 15 to 20 years to even get the opportunity.
Okay, well.
So to me, this was, one example of how coming to a place that maybe other people look over or, that flyover country really gave me this opportunity in a career that I probably would not have gotten anywhere else. And I was able to grow with the team, learn a lot about aviation, learn a lot about transport medicine, and, be able to care for people. at the end of it, I got my flight numbers. We track how many flights people go on. And
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't on the flight every single for these, but they told me it was over 14,000 patients that flew under my name. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It was
That's,
really cool.
I was not expecting that high of a number. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, very good. So, like you alluded to, now you're leading the emergency medicine residency program. What got you into taking that step?
Yeah. So I had been in other leadership at Sanford Health. I had been like the vice chief of the emergency department, and then AirMed got me in touch with a lot of people. And there was a gift given in 2022 that was focused on graduate medical education. So meaning that specialty education after medical school. And they started looking, both USD and Sanford started looking at like what specialty makes the most sense to start. We had a general surgery program, we had pediatrics, we have internal medicine, family medicine. And with us getting our level 1 trauma verification, that kind of made it so that EM seemed like a natural next specialty to start. And you have to go through this whole approval process with a governing body to get approval for that. And so I actually got hired into this role. It'll be 2 years ago already, to do all the background work. You have to put together a big application, prove that the hospital can meet these requirements, prove that USD can provide the educational opportunities. And then you ultimately go through this whole process that takes months and months and months. And we finally got our approval in April of this year.
Very good.
Yeah, so we will be starting with a class of 6 residents starting in July. And we have just wrapped up our first interview season where you do kind of like what we're doing, virtual interviews to see who's going to be in that first class. And I have to say, we were blown away. We had thought this made a good place to have an EM residency. There are over 250 programs in the United States, but 0 were in our region. So none in South Dakota, none in North Dakota, Wyoming, Montana, Idaho. All of those states, as we all know, a huge area of land.
Yeah, no kidding.
No training programs for EM. There's 1 in Omaha. There's 3 in Minnesota. There's now 2 in Iowa. So even our surrounding area had less than 10, which meant that every medical student that graduated from the medical schools in these regions would have to leave to go away for a residency.
Okay.
And studies have shown that 40% of people who do residency in an area are going to stay in that area to work.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And so South Dakota has this vast disparity in emergency medicine care. Here in Sioux Falls, we've got it really great. I've got some really awesome colleagues out in the Black Hills area, but the rest of the state, it's very hit or miss on if you're going to have, who you're going to have manning your emergency department. And emergency medicine in in South Dakota is really exciting right now. We're starting a pediatric emergency department at Sanford, which is officially opening up in January. The university is opening a department of emergency medicine for more of that educational opportunity.
Good.
And now with this residency program, we're going to have the opportunity to train our own EM residents and hopefully expose them to the benefits of practicing in a rural place or a smaller community. Many programs are in Detroit or Chicago or New York, and they really do not understand what rural healthcare is. They have maybe 3 or 4 level 1 trauma centers within a 30-mile radius. And in South Dakota, we have patients who do not have a single emergency department in their county. There's 22 counties in the state that doesn't have a single emergency department, that don't have a single emergency.
Wow.
Yeah. So 22. In total, there's less than 100 board certified emergency physicians, meaning that they trained in emergency medicine and they passed the board from the American Board of Emergency Medicine. And so our real goal with this residency program is to train our own, kind of hopefully keep people in the area or our region. Because on this east side of the state, we do see people from Minnesota and Iowa as well. And luckily, in this first class that we were just finished interviewing for, there were quite a few students that applied to us from Minnesota, Iowa, South Dakota, and North Dakota. And we were thrilled to see that response. Yeah.
What were you kind of thinking? How many people would be applied? Did it blow out your expectation? What you were thinking, or?
Yeah, so I have 6 spots, like 6. That's it.
Yeah,
And I had over
very
300
limited.
applications. Yeah, I had 300
Wow.
applications. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. That
So
shows, I think you have the demand.
we were able to kind of sort through the website that they use. We were able to sort like what are people's connections to the area? Why would they want to come here? Why would they want to train? And we found, a lot of students from South Dakota stay and go to USD, but not all. We found many students from South Dakota in the Sioux Falls area, especially that had gone to other places for medical school and kind of hopefully want to come back here for residency training. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad it's an option now that we can retain them and
Yeah.
everything. That's awesome. Can you walk us through what the program kind of the high level overview, what they're going to be going through in this program?
Yeah, so all of these are students who will have graduated from medical school. They'll graduate, most of them this coming spring. So they're doctors at that point,
Yes.
but we lovingly call them baby doctors. You don't know what you don't know, and they need a little bit more training.
Hmm.
So they're going to come to us. We're going to have a 3-year program, and during those 3 years, emergency medicine, you have to be a jack of all trades. So they're going to train in just about every specialty there is. They're going to do rotations in obstetrics, orthopedics, general surgery, internal medicine. They're going to do some specialty EMS services, and then ultrasound, ICU care, critical care, get a little bit of transport and some options with AirMed as well. And then they'll also have some opportunities to do some elective rotations. The rotation that we're the most proud of, though, is we are going to require 2 months of working in a rural emergency department, and they'll actually be going to Aberdeen for that training. So we'll have like a furnished apartment, and they're going to go and work with our colleagues in Aberdeen and get a true immersive experience of what rural medicine is and how different it is, pros and cons for that. But because it's within the same healthcare system, and because if they need to transport a patient, we have this really great, transfer system and support system, and they're calling back down to Sioux Falls to talk to us to transfer the patients. It's going to be a really supported way to experience rural medicine. And there again, we're hoping that by just exposing people to the blessings that can come with practicing in a rural place, that would encourage more people to look for jobs long term.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. Literally real world experience. I am curious then, so before kind of this program and it are most emergency doctors are they more veterans then, or did they still tend to be younger in their career?
Um, you mean here in Sioux Falls or
Yeah,
like,
yeah, here in
yeah,
Sioux Falls, sorry.
I did actually look it up. I have 6 partners at Sanford that were born and raised in South Dakota, and 4 of them went to the University of South Dakota for medical school and then had to go
Okay.
away for EM and come back.
And then come back. Okay.
Yeah.
So they
And
did find their way back, but
but yeah, it's like some people left and did their training and then never came back. Others are
Mhm.
like myself and totally transplants here. And I think the numbers are very similar with our colleagues at Avera as well. They have, a similar number of emergency medicine physicians in Sioux Falls, and some local and some transplants to the area because it's a great place to live and work. Yeah.
I gotta ask, obviously, since you've been an ER doctor for a couple decades here, HIPAA safe, of course. Is there any like crazy stories that you can share with us?
I think that's one of our least favorite questions in a loving way because everybody asks it. And
Yeah, of
the ones that
course.
the ones that stick with me are the awful ones, yeah. And of course, they usually involve children. I did have one patient that I could say in my career, like if it wasn't me or somebody with my training, they would not have survived out of the emergency department. And that particular patient, this is a number of years ago, actually went on to not only survive, but have a child the following year. And those are the things like I can think of one in 12 years like that, maybe a couple more, but they're few and far between. You really do have to count on your colleagues and then take good care of yourself because we unfortunately do see just some really awful things, and usually again involving children and that kind of stuff. One of my favorite, like kind of haha funny stories though, is I had a gentleman, you can't make this up. He took a sip of soda sitting in his truck and actually like he started coughing because it went down the wrong tube.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and he fell out of his truck bed and landed on his head and actually broke his neck. And you're sitting there going,
How is that even?
Yeah, so your Diet Coke is like what caused your broken neck? Like I can't make this up. So, there's a couple of those where you're just like, come again? How I don't understand how this all happened. And yeah, it's kind of funny. We joke about writing it down, but again, it's mixed in there with the sad things and the tough to deal with things. And yeah.
Is there a piece of advice you give someone coming into the career that has helped you get through kind of maybe some of those sadder, harder things to understand?
Yeah, I would say you have to have something that grounds you. I am a Christian, practicing Christian, and faith is, of course, really important to me and my family. And that's something that gives me comfort when I'm taking care of some of these more difficult things. And then I have a husband who's super supportive of me. He's actually a stay-at-home dad, which is how we keep our household running. And I'm able to have the career that I have because he does everything in the background. And it's awesome. So surround yourself with faith and family and people that take care of you. Yeah.
Amazing. Dr. Polzin, is there, if people want to know more about their program or learn more about you personally, is there spots or things that you could share with our listeners on that?
Yeah. The USD GME website, so usdgme.org, has actually a whole video if you would like to get some popcorn and watch myself and then my partner, Dr. Hamanaka. He's my assistant program director. And then also our administrator, Juliet Copenhaver, she is on the video as well. So you can kind of see what our plans are for our residents and a little bit of an insight into the emergency department. And then I think it's on a couple of different news agencies. But like I said, the new pediatric emergency department is opening up in the next couple of weeks. And that's really exciting to bring, specialized pediatric care to our smallest patients.
Absolutely, that is. And that is going to be here in Sioux Falls then?
Yep, it's within the Sanford Emergency Department, so kind of like a department within a department, but it's a brand new 10-bed pediatric specific ED. Yeah.
Good. Well, Abby, thank you so much for joining us. It's awesome to get the insights and really the knowledge on how this whole emergency world works. There's a lot more that goes into it, I think, than people realize. So thank you for sharing those.
Yeah, thanks again for having me.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we will see you on the next one.
Know someone with serious grit and a great growth story? Send them our way at grittogrowthpodcast.com/guest.